editing me here, I realized mid-editing this video that I did not say that this piece will be fully available on my Substack, so you can see all my sources and follow along. There are a lot of sources for this piece, so I highly recommend diving deeper into some of them. Please share this piece any way you can, whether it's sharing from the Substack or sharing this YouTube video. I just want to get this story out there. I want to get people educated and get people motivated to do something about this. So, yeah, enjoy the video. My name is Owen. I'm working on a series about surveillance and security in the Lehigh Valley, particularly regarding flock safety and ICE. I first heard about flock back in the summer, so well over 8 months ago. I first really started diving into this story back at the end of September or the beginning of October when I first saw a flock camera in Bethlehem. That inspired me to really pursue this story, and now we're here. Flock safety, a prime contributor to the rapid erosion of privacy across the US, is sinking its talons into the Lehigh Valley. Founded in 2017, Flock is in over 5,000 communities nationwide, reading 20 billion license plates every month. That's billion with a B. Over 1,000 businesses, such as HOAs, hospitals, and school districts, also partner with Flock. The company's flagship device is the Falcon Automatic License Plate Reader, or ALPR. Dozens of these devices can be found in Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, and other Lehigh Valley towns. Flock also offers the Condor Pan Tilt Zoom live video camera, the PTZ, the Raven acoustic gunshot detector, and surveillance drones. Private individuals have mapped roughly 50,000 ALPRs on sites like DFlock, but the estimated number of US Flock devices exceed 90,000. These devices are automatically enrolled in nationwide data sharing, and you don't need Flock hardware to be a customer. Any camera with the right specs can be integrated. Falcons record license plates and other identifiable markers, bumper stickers, colors, make, model, add-ons, damages. The AI-driven Flock OS processes all these images and videos, which are then time-stamped and sent to back-end databases. Customers simply input brief text queries to their databases, which search through all eligible Flock devices around the country. There's no federal law regulating surveillance footage retention periods, so Flock can extend its default 30-day period at will. Some places have imposed briefer retention periods, but that hardly matters, because Flock cameras are constantly recording wrongful detainments, dragnet surveillance, and profiling. Rights groups like the ACLU have argued that ALPRs violate the Fourth Amendment because police typically don't require warrants to access their footage. Flock cameras incorrectly flag cars, which lead police to baselessly accuse people of committing crimes and wrongfully detain people. But this isn't a new phenomenon. For decades, police have stopped people at gunpoint after ALPRs misread license plates. Historically, ALPRs have also been used in dragnet spying campaigns and to squeeze millions in revenue from unpaid driving infractions in poor Black neighborhoods. While Flock denies their systems can detect human features like sex, height, and race, their patents say otherwise. And nevertheless, there are countless instances of police using Flock technology to target marginalized communities. Estranged partners and community members have been stalked. A Texas woman was tracked out of state for allegedly self-administering an abortion. Police ran hundreds of searches pertaining to protests. 84% of all Flock-related traffic stops in Oak Park, Illinois involved Black people, and police conducted hundreds of data searches to racially profile Romani people. Flock publicly claims it does not share customer data, but this is inaccurate. Flock can share data with third parties if it has a good faith belief disclosure is necessary to, quote, comply with a legal process or request, to enforce the terms and conditions, to detect, prevent, or otherwise address security, fraud, or technical issues, or protect the rights, property, or safety of Flock, its customers and users, as required or permitted by law." End quote. The developing Flock Condor scandal. Back in December, Ben Jordan and 404 Media revealed that Flock, quote, left at least 60 of its people-tracking Condor PTZ cameras live streaming and exposed to the open internet, end quote. With no username or password, anyone could view and download footage, change camera settings, view log files, and run diagnostics. These high-resolution cameras can identify people up to half a mile away. But Flock cameras don't need to be left open to the internet to be hacked and hijacked. They can be used to track police patrols in real time, host malware, and even mine cryptocurrency. These blatant vulnerabilities create vast potential for malleable, omnipresent surveillance systems, and without intervention, matters are only going to get worse. Flock and ICE. Flock temporarily paused all pilot programs with the DHS in August 2025. The company said all federal customers will receive a federal designation, barring access to statewide or nationwide lookup tools. But the DHS and ICE never needed to be direct customers to access Flock in the first place. Florida Highway Patrol performed over 250 Flock searches, directly contributing to the arrests of 1,120 immigrants during Operation Tidal Wave. 37% of those arrested had no criminal record. Flock says it always notifies customers when data is accessed and maintains its commitment to local and state compliance. But Flock never notified police in Capitola that their devices shared nationwide, even though California law prohibits out-of-state ALPR data sharing. Flock cameras in Danville, Illinois, were used in immigration and reproductive health-related searches, going against Illinois state law. Border Patrol and ICE have even been granted access to Flock cameras in school districts. 30 police departments from Florida, Georgia, Indiana, and Tennessee conducted hundreds of immigration-related searches of Flock cameras in Texas school districts over a period of just 1 month. How can Bethlehem residents access Flock-related information? The residents of Flock cities are not customers and are often left with little to no methods for oversight. In places like Stanwood, Washington, law enforcement argue that ALPR footage is not considered public record until a public agency extracts and downloads the data. Some cities host transparency portals, which outline what their Flock cameras do and don't detect, the number of cameras in the community, and which external agencies have access. Some transparency portals also provide downloadable audits of Flock searches, but others don't. Bethlehem Police Department, which has partnered with Flock since at least September 5th, 2024, has no transparency portal. And after my months of research, residents have essentially no method to oversee Flock use in Bethlehem. Directive 3.18.1 outlines BPD's use of ALPR technology, but Flock is not mentioned in this release. Section 3D states, quote, ALPR systems may be used in conjunction with any routine patrol operation or criminal investigation. Reasonable suspicion or probable cause is not required, end quote. Section 3E2 mandates law enforcement gain secondary verification, such as 911, to respond to an ALPR hit. Section 7C states, quote, requests for ALPR data by non-law enforcement or non-prosecutorial agencies will be processed in accordance with applicable laws and policies, end quote. The document's two cross-references, Directives 1.3.2 and 3.15.1, are only available to those with a BPD username and password. Bethlehem necessitates one ALPR data audit per year. That's it, just one. 3.18.1, Section 6A31 states, quote, after review by the Office of the Chief of Police, the audit and any associated documentation shall be retained, end quote. These audits consist of a mere 10 randomly selected browsing inquiries. There's no explanation of how residents can access these audits. It is unknown if Bethlehem Flock footage is enrolled in statewide or nationwide searching. However, 3.18.1 Section 4 does permit BPD to use external hot lists in its own investigations. Numbers and words, smoke and mirrors. Sorry for the sudden change in camera angle and color grade. You'll never guess whose camera died in the middle of recording. In February 2023, Bethlehem accepted $200,000 from Pennsylvania's Gun Violence Investigation and Prosecution Grant Program to upgrade outdated surveillance technology. Allentown received over $4 million from the same program, $1.5 million of which paid for a 2-year contract with Flock for 67 Falcon ALPRs and an unspecified number of Raven gunshot detectors. In 2026, at least $41,000 will be spent on Flock. This is the first ever mention of Flock in a Bethlehem City budget, so that leaves me with a few questions. Does this simply cover the city's Flock subscription, or will more hardware be purchased with this money? Is taxpayer money now going towards this program, or is the city still using grant money? One of the only mentions of Flock in any publicly available city or BPD document is in Directive 3.16.1 on body-worn and in-car cameras, which contradicts public statements from BPD Chief Michelle Cott. At the February 2nd, 2026 Bethlehem City Council meeting, Chief Cott stated, quote, "We don't have any Flock cameras, only Flock automatic license plate readers. Unfortunately, Falcon ALPRs are indeed cameras. Falcons not only take short bursts of photos, but customers can choose to download software that gives these cameras live video capabilities. It is unknown if the city has equipped their Falcon ALPRs with this software. Nevertheless, Directive 3.16.1 indicates the city does consider Flock ALPRs to be cameras. The only solid information that Chief Cott provided at this meeting is that Bethlehem retains Flock footage for up to 90 days and contracts with a company called Genetech for its video surveillance. Remember, Flock's default retention period is 30 days. So why does the city need to keep that footage for so long? So, Bethlehem has no public Flock policy, no transparency portal, and has a police chief who seemingly can't articulate the nuances of the city's surveillance technologies. How can the public trust this technology to be used responsibly and securely? I'm waiting on a response from Chief Cott or her team. I filed a right to know request, and I have more questions than answers. On November 7th, 2025, I filed a right to know request. On December 14th, the Office of Open Records, OOR, issued their official denial, citing Pennsylvania Statute 65, subsection 67.70833 of the Right to Know law. Try to say that 5 times fast. Apparently, the records I requested, quote, expose or create vulnerability through disclosure of the location, configuration, or security of critical systems. In my appeal to the Northampton County District Attorney, I explained why I believe my request was improperly denied. I argue that Bethlehem is far less safe while its Flock usage is shrouded in mystery. To start, it is unclear why disclosing BPD's contract with Flock constitutes a safety concern. I understand that critical elements of the contract could perhaps create vulnerabilities. However, rather than withhold all information, partially redacted versions of the documents could potentially address my request. Second, I did not request the locations or specifications of any devices, merely the number of devices registered under the Bethlehem Police Surveillance Camera Registry Program. Third, I did not request any individual pieces of data nor specific locations of data processing facilities. I simply asked what the city's Flock integrated devices are capable of recording, what types of data they currently record, how long that data is stored, and where it is stored. Even Flock is more transparent. They state the encryption used in their AWS cloud systems. I believe the city should be readily able to state who has access to surveillance data and what laws grant them access. The OOR's denial indicates several possibilities. 1, these laws and policies are not publicly available. 2, there's a lack of consistent communication between departments and officials. Or 3, these laws simply don't exist. I'm still waiting on a full response from the DA. What does all this mean for Bethlehem and the Lehigh Valley? Bethlehem police says that, quote, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But Flock clearly sees the other way around. One simple keyword can grant you 1,000 pictures. Over the last several months, pressure has increased across the Lehigh Valley for local governments and police to end their contracts with Flock, particularly in response to ICE operations. And as much as we need our governments and leaders to protect us, we also need to start at the individual level. There are countless cameras at private businesses and residences in the valley. Companies like Ring, Blink, and Nest are just as nefarious and dangerous as Flock. Daniel Bochter provides a fantastic overview of Amazon Sidewalk, Ring, and Flock. Thankfully, public backlash can be effective. Ring and Flock canceled their partnership after Ring's failed search party ad at this year's Super Bowl. It remains to be seen, however, if Ring footage will still somehow end up in Flock systems. Furthermore, the ongoing Nancy Guthrie case has some potentially terrifying implications for mass surveillance. The FBI obtained footage from a Google Nest camera on Guthrie's property, but Guthrie never paid for Google's advanced Nest subscription, so it's unclear how and why this footage even existed. Conclusion. Americans are afraid of Big Brother watching them, but we fail to realize that we are willingly surveilling ourselves. Private, heavy emphasis on the air quotes there, private surveillance companies manufacture consent for extensive mesh surveillance networks by convincing us that we need this technology to keep us safe. I think it's long overdue for us to deeply question that. I will continue to provide updates as more information becomes available, as people start to get back to me, as people share more information with me. I've been following this story for several months now, and things keep developing, so please stay informed. In my next piece, I will share all that I've learned about Moravian University's security footage practices and the questions that still remain from that. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Thanks.